Yay! We're looking at Thursday, May 17th. Eddie, you're the last day I ever recorded myself teaching with you guys. Because next week I'm not really teaching, it's me telling stories. And tomorrow
the whole week?
So, yeah. We have 3 days of stories and then one of me not telling stories, but something else we enjoy. Final test is tomorrow over twttin. If you don't want to take it tomorrow, you're more than welcome to take it on Monday. Absolutely fine with me. You have 2 versions of the test you can do. You have the basic version, which is multiple choice questions, which gets you up to a 79. Or you can take the challenge version, which does require a lot more thinking, but can get you the full score. You do get to use the book if you want. You can also check out the paper copy of the book. You just got to see me at the end of the day, or at the end after class, and return it before school the next day.
Can I have my shoe back? Tyler has the paper copy.
No, only because you have to wait now because I'm way over here. And the art show and choir concert tonight. Mr. B's birthday. I don't got that part. Essay, the 9 weeks assessment. If it's not done tomorrow, you'll be doing it tomorrow in class. I'll have paper for you that you're welcome to use, and I'll also have directions for you to try and help you out. Tomorrow's the last day to buy candy in class. You can buy candy next week, but it won't be until after class ends. And then for today, things to go through. Let's see. With you guys, we did Mark and Eminem at the hippie house. We find out that he's there.
We haven't talked about
Did we talk about that at all?
No.
All right, then I
We're
apologize.
slow class.
A little bit.
I read that part, but...
All right. So then we find out with Mark and Eminem, with Mark and Brian, they're talking after the whole cutting off of Angela's hair.
Oh yeah, tied it in a knot.
We got to the tying, we got to that part. That apparently Mark knows where Eminem has been. And he says, hey, don't worry about him, he's safe. And then we get to, we talk about Mark's parents' deaths?
No, we stopped at...
So we know what happened to Mark's parents, which is what?
They died.
They shot each other. Well, we find out why they shot each other, and he actually gives us a bit more.
Because they were in a fight.
They were in a fight, and they were drunk, but it's what they were in a fight about. So I'm just going to read that scene real quick, so you can figure out what exactly or why it is they're fighting. He says, this is Brian talking, so how come your old man shot your mother? She shot him back, but it was too late. She was dying anyway. I must have really been drunk, because I never mentioned that to Mark in all the years I'd known him. It was me, Brian. I was under the porch. I could hear him real plain. And the old man was saying, I don't care. I ain't never seen a kid with eyes that color. Nobody on my side of the family has eyes that color. Not on yours either. And then the old lady says, that's right. And why should he look like anybody in your family? He ain't yours. And then they start yelling. And then I hear this sound like a couple of firecrackers. And I think, well, I can go live with Brian and his old lady now. So they are drunk. And they are arguing. And it's about...
It's about him. It's about Mark.
Yep, the fact that Mark was not the dad's baby. And so the fact that she was basically coming right out and saying, I had an affair, I was with somebody else, and so that's why he's like, what? Shoots her, just like, what? Shoots him. Because as they say, guns solve everything. And so that's why apparently they both die, and he's like, now I get to go live with you. So we find out that Mark does not come from a very happy place, but he's trying.
Wait, so technically his dad wasn't his dad?
Correct. And so we don't know if his mom, we find out another scene that his mom says it was a cowboy who was just visiting at the time. And so it was just some random cowboy who came through.
Was it those guys who got arrested in the Texas guys?
Probably not. Random other cowboys.
Probably.
Then Brian convinces Mark to take him to the hippie house where he's like, hey, I need to go find Eminem. Mark takes him there, but Eminem's not there. But we find out as Mark's walking through this house, everybody knows him.
Yeah.
And they all refer to him, I think, as Cat. They're like, what's up, Cat? I don't know why they call him Cat, but apparently that's his nickname.
Yeah.
But everyone's on a first-name basis and talking to him. Brian?
That's what my uncle calls my mom.
Maybe. So there you go. Maybe they know Brian's family, too. And so the fact as he goes through, everyone keeps talking to him, even though Eminem's not there. And so Brian's like, ooh, there's a lot of people here. And they have, like, the kids, like, sitting at the wall, like, just staring at their hands, like, ooh, hey. Those would be the kids that were on LSD, because when it's melting the back of your spinal column, you get to see all kinds of fun things, like, oh, hand melting, or whatnot. And so that's when they walk through there, but Eminem's not there at the time. Jake?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. And we start to get an idea about why Mark knows all of these hippies that he's going around, because he knows not just the hippies here, but the hippies at a bunch of other places too, and he seems to have connections to all of them.
That's kind of weird.
And so, Brian seems to have no idea why, but the rest of us start getting ideas. If you don't have an idea yet, don't worry. You'll get a better idea soon.
Oh.
And we got to Angela's revenge against Brian. No, we did not. Angela's revenge against Brian. So,
I know this.
what happened to Angela?
I thought it was against
Angela
Hair got cut off.
Hair got cut off.
And then thrown on top.
Who did the cutting?
Mark.
Mark.
Why did Mark do this?
What did Brian do?
Brian.
Got her drunk.
Yeah, Brian, for the most part, was there drinking with her and talking to her, but he didn't actually do a whole lot, but he was there for it. Well, the problem is, Angela then wants to get revenge. So that's the scene where she doesn't know what happened because the whole drunk not knowing what was happening, she just knows who was there. So luckily, she has two people related to her. And those people related to her are...
The guys that are in jail.
Those are the two that are going to pop up. Barthenia?
Didn't Brian say like Angela had the kind of face that could pull off like a bull's head?
What?
And so the fact that he says that even with short hair, she'd probably still look good, but it still wasn't by her choice.
Wait, are you reading how we going?
I'm going to read this part. There's just little scenes I want to go through and read.
Wait, so she's pretty and what?
She's so pretty that even with short hair, it's not going to affect things. She's just one of those really beautiful people. She just has a really messed up, horrible home life. So
And personality.
And personality. Also true. So this scene is right after Brian goes and drops Kathy off. They tried to find Eminem and they couldn't find out where he was. So he just goes back and goes to hang out at Terry Jones's house. You want to see?
Who's Terry Jones?
No, back up one. Sorry, not 127. It's on page 125. I was a bit off.
It's his bestie.
So after I dropped Kathy off at her house, I headed for Terry Jones's place. I was supposed to pick up Mark there, but when I got to the house, nobody was home. Terry's parents were out of town for the weekend. And normally that means it's a party and poker time at the Joneses. I figured everybody had gone out scouting for booze and broads, so I just sat down on the front steps to wait. It was a cool night, but not too cool. It was getting to be spring. It had been a real weird winter. Last fall, Mark and me had thought just alike, like as one person. Now, we couldn't even talk to each other. Charlie had been alive and griping about our Coke bill. I'd been a hustler, both with pool and chicks. Eminem had been reading Newsweek and getting his kicks babysitting. Now, everything was different. While I was sitting there, smoking and thinking, the car pulled up. I thought it was some guys coming to party and so forth, so I didn't pay any attention. The four guys were standing right in front of me before I came to and realized that two of them were Tim and Curly Shepherd. I thought you guys were in the cooler, I said pleasantly, just like I didn't know they were here for the sole purpose of stomping out my guts. We're out now, Tim said. What's the cooler?
Jail.
Making sure.
Whatever.
He scared me. He was what I would call a rough guy. Curly was mostly mouth, but Tim backed up anything he said. He really was a hood. Now, I know most people call any kid from over here on the east side a hood, but Tim really was. I guess so, I said, still smoking, not blowing my cool. Figured if I kept him talking long enough, maybe Mark and Terry and, I don't know, God knows who else would show up. You seen Angela lately? Tim said. Curly was keeping his mouth shut. Even he was awed by his big brother. There's something about Tim Shepherd, his scarred face, fighter's slouch, flickering of his black eyes, really lets you know he meant business. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I saw her over on the ribbon last night. She went for a drive with me. I decided I didn't need to drag Mark into this. It was plain they weren't worried about him. No kidding. Did you know Angela got her hair cut this morning? At least that's what people say. She told me something different. I was sweating. I could feel it running down my back and wetting my palms, and my cigarette was shaking, so I ground it out on the porch. But I sounded calm as I said, "What's she telling you?" "She says you got her drunk and cut her hair off. Isn't that the truth?" "Yeah, that's the truth. I'm sorry it happened." I decided to tell it straight for once, without all this hedging and playing the game. It was a rotten thing to do, and I'm sorry. "Oh, you ain't half as sorry as you gonna be," Tim said. And the two guys I didn't know rushed me, pinned my arms, and held me while Tim and Curly took turns punching me. I did pass out, finally, but not as soon as I hoped I would. And they beat him to the point where he's almost put into the hospital. Probably should go to the hospital, except he doesn't want to go to the hospital, doesn't want to worry his mom too much about it. And of course, now that he's been beat up, what's supposed to happen next?
Mark's gonna get beat up.
Not Mark gonna get beat up.
Oh,
Angela!
Well, the idea being is, well, who did the bad thing to Angela?
Mark.
But who gets beat up instead?
Brian.
And so Brian is the one who, like the good friend, throws himself in front of it, does not rat out Mark whatsoever. He says, it was all me, I did it, saves his best friend. Problem is, what's Mark going to want to do?
Save his best friend.
He's going to want to get revenge to save his best friend.
He's gonna beat up Tim.
And he wants to have the whole circle. Thing is, Brian then tells Mark not to do it. He says, listen, it has to stop somewhere. Make it stop with me. He's like, listen, we did a bad thing. What we did to Angela was awful. I paid for it. Let it end. And Mark's like, listen, you did nothing. I did something and you got beat up for it. And they start arguing again. If you remember the beginning of the book, Mark and Brian, best friends, hanging out together all the time, could not separate them. And then, of course, Brian meets Kathy. Things start separating. They're not hanging out as much. Now, of course, the more things keep happening. And Mark and Brian, who were best friends, now going in different paths. From here, things get worse. Because now, Brian and Kathy end up finding out where Eminem is. And they're going to go rescue him. And so from the hippie house, finally, Brian tells Kathy, I know where he is. We can go get him. Kathy says we have to go there. And so once Brian is finally able to move and drive again, they drive to the hippie house to go pick him up. Problem is, he's not just smoking pot anymore. He's now gone a different path.
Oh, LSD.
And that's where things begin to change.
Are you reading this part?
If my name was Eminem, I would like to see Eminem.
Let's see. Alright, so this is them walking back up to that hippie house that he was at before. They're now, this is Brian and Kathy coming up trying to get to where Eminem is. We walked up to the house. There were kids on the porch just watching the street. And I stopped to talk with some biblical looking guy. Big beard, long hair. I'm looking for Baby Freak. He around? Yeah, he is. The guy was staring directly into my eyes. He had friendly, trusting eyes. Are you a friend of his? Yeah, I'm a good friend. This is his sister. Kathy gave him the big smile that she won me with. The guy smiled back. He's upstairs, I think. Suddenly the guy looked worried. He's been floating for a couple of days now. Oh, no kidding, I said, keeping my cool. Kathy followed my example. Talk to his travel agent? He's the cat with the red hair inside. Travel agent? What's that? Kathy whispered as we went in. I didn't want to tell her. I didn't want her to feel the sudden cold waves of fear that I was feeling. So I said, yeah, I don't know. Two things. When they say he's floating, what does that mean?
High.
That he's high. So high, floating, they're not real witty on that part. On the other part, when they say travel agent, what's a travel agent?
Mark.
No. If you take LSD, it said you're going on a trip. That's what the high is called. And so if someone gives you drugs and you go on a trip, then the person who gave you the drugs, travel agent. They're the person who sends you on the trip. So that's just the person who gave him the drugs, which means he took LSD, and that's why Brian didn't say anything. Cat is his nickname.
Oh.
That's the way he's calling him. We found who we were looking for. A big, heavy guy with fire-colored hair, a beard, mustache. Hey, we're looking for Baby Freak, I said. I was beginning to see why Eminem had acquired this other nickname. Most of the kids, they were at least 17 or 18, with a lot of college-age kids. It was a real crowded place. But now I can't remember what everyone was doing. At least some of the kids were smoking grass. I mean, you could tell that by the smell. I was hoping the place didn't get raided while we were there. You can get busted just for being at a place where people are smoking pot. Yeah? Man, that kid's on a bad trip. Kathy made a funny yelping little sound. Some of these freaks been dropping acid, so Baby wanted to try it. So I sat with him. He's on a bad trip, man. Real bad. He's calmed down a little now, but all day today, me and some of these other cats, we've been holding him and keeping him from jumping out the window. I felt like I was going to throw up. Kathy was as white as a sheet. Can we see him? She said in a tiny, expressionless voice. Yeah, sure. We followed him up the stairs. He led us to the same room Mark and I had gone to the last time we were there. This time, no one was there except the blonde chick who was curled up on the bed asleep and someone huddled in the corner. To my surprise, Red walked over to the huddle. Hey, man, there's people here to see you. Are they spiders? The person didn't raise his head. The voice was Eminem's. Nah, man, they're squares. Squares is a slang term for someone who doesn't do drugs. If you were considered straight, meaning the fact that you were not cool and did drugs, you were a square. I have no idea where the slang came from. Eminem looked up. I hardly recognized him. His hair was down to his shoulders, and he was a lot thinner. He was dirty, and the expression on his face was one I'd never seen on him before. It was suspicion. "Eminem? Baby? It's me, Kathy?" Kathy kneeled down in front of him. He was staring at her, but not seeing her. "Square spiders? I don't want to see any spiders." No, it's me, Kathy, your sister. "Don't you want to go home?" "I went to my stomach," Eminem said in a high, unnatural voice. He was talking too fast. "I went down into my stomach, and all these spiders came out, and I never knew there were spiders in my stomach. I was there 10 years, and all that time these spiders kept chewing on me. They were big spiders." Kathy choked back a sob. "Oh, baby, what have you done to yourself?" He seemed to finally see her. "Kathy!" "Oh, I screamed, and I screamed, and I screamed, and I screamed, but nobody would come to help me." He was shaking. He didn't look right. He looked sick. "I kept trying to get back, but the spiders held me down. They held me down, and they chewed on me, and the colors, they kept going in and out. And I listened to the colors, and they were screaming too. Red and yellow screamed loudest. The spiders were eating them too." "Yeah, he kept, trying to jump out the window," Red said. "All day. So we kept turns, holding him down." What'd the guy want? A medal? He had given him the stuff in the first place. "Hey, Kathy, we ought to take him to the hospital." She looked at me quickly. "Hospital?" Then she nodded. "Yeah, let me call Daddy first." She looked at Red. "Do you have a phone I can use?" And she followed him out of the room. "There was this other color," Eminem said to me seriously, but half afraid, as if he thought I'd turn into a spider any minute. "I don't know its name. It told me, but I forgot. It said I was being paid back for all the carrots I ate. I didn't know. I didn't know about the carrots before. I don't think it was my fault." He was crying. Tears were pouring down his face, but he hadn't changed his expression. He looked so thin and scared. Not a bit like the Eminem I knew. "Do you think I should be paid back for something I didn't know about?" "No. I don't think it was your fault, kid." I put my arm around him and held him, and he was shaking real bad. Kathy came back. "Daddy's going to meet us at the hospital. Can you carry him?" "Yeah." I picked him up easily. He couldn't have weighed more than 90 pounds. "I'm so tired. I was gone so long, and I didn't have any sleep." I carried him down the stairs and out of the house. Nobody made any move to stop me. Nobody seemed to care. So, with Eminem, things did not go well for him. With his particular hallucination, that's where the spiders come in. Why? I have no idea.
I thought his
Yeah.
biggest. I think he's thinking, some stuff that scares him, and he's thinking that the cats or the hippies are spiders because they're holding him down.
Could be. And if it says it came from his stomach, there's every chance that he's not eating a lot. You ever have those stomach pains, your stomach gurgles? Well, on LSD, it would fill in a reason for the gurgling, and if you ever have a stomach cramp, it would give you a reason, and then, so who knows what. From here, we find out that when he goes to the hospital, essentially he's had brain damage from it. And we find out that he's never going to be the same. He's never going to be as smart as he was. Plus, he never gets to have kids because LSD affects your ability to then reproduce. And so he's basically completely changed and not the same kid he was before. Brian, completely upset, torn apart by this. Kathy's destroyed by it. Eminem's parents destroyed by it. Brian, completely destroyed by this, goes home. And even though he doesn't usually want revenge, this becomes the time where he does want revenge. The problem is, who does he want revenge against?
LSD.
Not just LSD, but you're getting close.
The hippies?
The people who gave him LSD. So he was trying to he wants revenge against the drug dealers who made Eminem the way he is, but he doesn't know any drug dealers. But he has all that pent-up rage he wants to do something about.
Was that close?
Which becomes...
Just like the people, the
With Connie and Mike? Yeah, that's going to come back in just a moment. So we're going to jump to page 144 where he's back at his house and things change. So this is where Brian now goes back home after dropping off Eminem at the hospital and finding out that he's all messed up. I was surprised to see how late it was when I got home. Mom was asleep. I went into my room and lay down without bothering to turn off the light. Mark wasn't home yet. I was tired. I felt empty and drained. Nothing can wear you out like caring about people. I was tired, yet I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep. I closed my eyes, but I kept seeing pictures. All these people were spinning around in my head. Mark and Charlie and Mike and Angela, Kathy and Eminem and Mr. Carlson and Tim and Curly Shepherd. Life had seemed so simple once, and now it suddenly seems so complicated. I could remember a time when I only worried when paying Charlie the $3 I owed him. Things used to be simple. Now they weren't. I wanted a cigarette bad. I half-heartedly searched my pockets, but I knew I didn't have any. Then I remembered Mark's spare carton and rolled off the bed and reached under his mattress. I felt something strange and pulled it out. It was a long cylinder-like thing. I unscrewed one end, and all these pills came rolling out. Now, I'm not dumb by any means. I've never used drugs except for a couple of times with grass, but I knew what they looked like. And I looked at this bunch of pills, and there were hundreds of them. And it was like a machine, and my head went click, 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 and it came up with an answer I didn't want. Mark was selling this stuff. This was way too many pills for me to have if he was just taking them himself. And besides, I'd have noticed something different about Mark if he'd been taking them. You can't use drugs and not show it. I knew too many kids who were users not to know that. Mark was selling. Mark was a pusher. That was where he was getting his money. That was why he'd known about the hippie house. And that was why they'd known about him. That was why he knew where to look for Eminem. Eminem. Kathy. Eminem was in the hospital. Maybe he was messed up for life. Mark was selling the stuff that made him that way. Maybe this wasn't LSD, but it was a step in that direction. And God only knows what all Mark had been selling. I thought about that blonde, dead-looking chick, and Eminem screaming about spiders, about Kathy half hysterical with grief. I thought about Mr. Carlson and the bitter doctor, and the whole mess was swirling around in my head, and it felt like it would burst wide open. When I thought about the cause of all this misery, I became very cool, and I very calmly called the cops. Eminem had lost his mind. Kathy was hurting, and I did something about it. Then I sat down on a chair in the front room and waited. And it seemed only a minute later when Mark came in. "Hey, man, you still up?" Then he stopped. "What's the matter?" "Oh, Brian, you look awful. What is it?" I held out the cylinder. "Oh, yeah, you found him, huh? Ah, don't worry, buddy. I don't take him. I have a good enough time like I am." "Yeah, just how are you anyway?" "What?" "Eminem's in the hospital. Acid trip. They think he may have lost his mind." "Oh, man, that's awful. That poor kid." Then he looked at me. "Brian, don't look like that. I said I don't take him. Come on, don't you believe me?" "I believe you. We needed the money, you know that. I tried getting a job, but with my police record, nobody'd hire me. I met this guy on the ribbon. He set me up. I figure I don't have to take it to sell it, so what's the worry?" "Eminem," I began, but I was too tired and too numb to talk. "Is that what's bugging you? Listen, I didn't sell him anything. He got it from somebody else. Look at Brian. They're going to get it from somebody if they want it, so why can't I make some money? I never forced it on anybody. I never tried to talk somebody into using drugs so I could make a buck." He could have talked all night. I wouldn't have changed my mind. This was wrong. For the first time in years, I thought about the golden-eyed cowboy who'd been Mark's father. Was Mark a throwback? To what? I wondered tiredly why I had never seen before. Mark had no concept of what was right and what was wrong. He didn't obey any laws because he couldn't even see there were any. Laws, right, wrong, they didn't matter to Mark because they were just words. "Brian, what is it? Listen, if it bugs you that much, I'll quit. I'll stop selling if you don't like it." "Shoot, I never thought it'd bother you. I sort of thought you knew about it." "Don't drag me into this," I thought. "Don't try to make me out to be blind just because you are." But out loud I said, "I called the cops." And I felt as if I was talking in my sleep. Mark went white. "What? What'd you say?" We could already hear the siren. "Brian, you know what something like this would do to me with my record. Brian, tell me you're lying." He was pleading. I thought maybe he'd run for it, but he didn't. He just sat down in a chair opposite me. He was white, and his eyes were black with a rim of gold around them. He looked the way he had when he'd been clobbered with that bottle. Like he was trying hard to understand. Like he was totally confused. Like he thought maybe I would answer in a foreign language. "Why are you doing this to me, buddy? Brian, just tell me." I couldn't tell him. I didn't know. The police arrived, and of course Mom woke up. She didn't know what was going on. She could only stand helpless in the kitchen doorway while the police questioned me, rounded up the drugs, and slapped handcuffs on Mark. They advised Mark of his right to remain silent, and he did. He just stood there quivering, watching me while I told the cops the things that put him behind bars for years. Then a cop said, "Let's go, kid." And it seemed to dawn on Mark what was happening. He looked quickly from the cops to me and then cried out, "My God, Brian, you're not going to let them take me to jail!" Didn't he know I had put him there? The cop jerked Mark suddenly around and shoved him out the door. Suddenly, it was deadly quiet. Just the distant siren and Mom's quiet sobbing. I went into the bathroom and threw up.
I know why he did that.
Why?
Because he wanted revenge on drug dealers. Because Eminem, and then like he found out about Mark. And then
With the whole... When I told you that the book made me cry,
is that the part?
that's the part that made me cry. Because if you follow the book up to that point, it's hard to say that Brian did the wrong thing. He turns into drug dealing. But at the same time, how do you not say what he just did is not the wrong thing? The whole point of Mark doing that was to make money to help the family. So that's why I found it so heartbreaking.
Oh, is that why you've been asking us that question ever since the beginning of the